The first step is mainly connected to the level of relationship. The second step concerns the matter. We ask ourselves, why? What's my concern, my interest, my purpose? As lateral leader, most of the time we find ourselves in the situation that we need something from others. This can be a completed report, the implementation of a new process, the allocation of resources, and so on. The answer to why is the basis of motivation. Suppose you want to motivate a colleague to invest time in your project. If your project fits already well to the plans of your colleague, a simple request will be sufficient. But it will become challenging if your colleague wants to use, for example, the 2 weeks otherwise. Then you will need good reasons to change the decision of your colleague. If your colleague understands the benefit of your project, then she can, more or less consciously, think about whether the time investment is worthwhile or not. Your colleague wants to know, what's in it for me? As influencer, you should know the interests of your colleagues. Successful fishermen know that the bait must be a delicacy for the fish and not for the fisherman. Additionally, it would be helpful to know what are the benefits for your colleague when she uses her time for another project. Because who feels understood is more willing to understand. I would like to offer one yang tool and one yin tool in order to work with purpose and interests. The yang tool is the so-called golden circles of Simon Sinek. He explains that effective influencing should follow the sequence why, how and what. But most of the time people first talk about the what and later about the why. An example. You're responsible for a project that is important for the strategic competitive advantage of your company. Let's start with the why. You relate to the strategic competitive advantage or the financial advantage or the advantages for our clients. How? You describe the strategy, the most important milestones and the way to the goal. What? What is the contribution that we want from our colleague? This could be, for example, the development of a report by a certain date. If you start with the why, it is more motivating than by asking the colleague directly for her contribution. And now the yin tool. This is a collection of questions which are helpful if your counterpart positions himself with a sentence like, "You will not get that resource from me." To find out the interests of others, we have to look behind the positions. For example, by expressing interest. This seems to be very important to you. Could you please elaborate? Or by asking for advice and help. I understand that you don't see any other way. My colleagues will, however, hold following arguments against it. What could I say to convince them? Why? What are your doubts? What seems to be the trouble? Or you can link it with appreciation. There's for sure a good reason for that. What is it? I'm curious. If direct questions sound too inquisitorial, I'm not sure if understood correctly. What are you trying to say? I would like to understand why. Say what you assume to be his interests. He will correct you. Offer an alternative with the question, why not? Your vis-a-vis will tend to explain, I will tell you why this is not working, and then he's talking about his interests. In this way, a stuck communication can be made liquid again.